Welcome to the Nourished podcast. We have another fantastic guest joining us for this week's episode. So please let me introduce to you Sara Southgate.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast. And if you want to introduce yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you, Leslie. So I'm Sara Southgate. I'm a naturopath, a herbalist, and a kinesiologist. And I have been helping women with their health since 2003. I'm a stress and anxiety specialist, and the people I love to work with most are women in their 40s and beyond. So I see lots of reproductive stuff, whether that is PMT, menopause, endometriosis, painful periods, lots of different things.
Amazing. So I think that naturopathy, kinesiology, herbalism, all of those sorts of things are so interesting. But can you kind of, in a snapshot, explain what they are? And I don't know, a lot of women aren't really aware of these alternative therapies and other choices that they've got. So what is naturopathy? What is kinesiology and herbalism? What is that?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that I always say they're not alternatives, they're complementary.
Yeah.
So I'm a real proponent of integrated medicine. Awesome. And that is where we take the wonderful things that the NHS has got and the wonderful things that we have. Because really they sit so well together. The NHS and GPs are so good at diagnosing stuff, but when you've got a chronic condition that actually is going to be improved by looking at diet and lifestyle and supplements, they're not set up for that and they're not trained for that. So it really is about getting the whole system to work together. And that kind of, in a nutshell, naturopathy is based on the premise that the body will heal itself given the right circumstances. So it's my responsibility, working with whoever my client, we will give the body the right circumstances. And that is, everything that we do is underpinned by what you eat. And then as a naturopath, I've got lots of different tools. So I have herbal medicine is my first go-to usually. But I also use food supplements, so vitamins, minerals, and I also use flower remedies for the more emotional side of things. And then again, naturopathy is a lifestyle. So it is about, I teach meditation, I teach people how to switch off their stress response by switching on their relaxation response. Lots of coping strategies for modern life, basically.
That's amazing, and I love that. I mean, having been a personal trainer and a nutrition coach for the best part of just over a decade, like you say, the NHS they're very good at doing their job, they're very good at diagnosing, but they're not set up to do that part of it. They're not geared up to kind of push you in that direction. And I've found quite often, I don't know if you've had this, but quite often when people are told you can remedy this with nutrition, you can remedy this with a better diet or better, changes to your diet, changes to your lifestyle. People kind of take that as it's a diet and then go crazy and try and sort of starve themselves of calories, or, it's not about cleaning up what they're eating, it's just about eating less of what they're eating. And people have that kind of skewed perception of what nutrition is and kind of mix it up with diet, and I've found that quite a lot when doctors have said, certainly with things thyroid related, diabetes related, weight related, that kind of side of things, it's not, people don't always take it as a healthy key, they just take it as a diet, and that kind of gets mixed up, I think, sometimes. But I'm very much like you, I'm very much like, go for the natural stuff, go for the real food, the whole food, the stuff that's going to give you all you need, the nutrients, the minerals, the vitamins, and take it from that respect, rather than I'm just going to eat less.
Yeah, I mean, and that is multifactorial in its cause. So we have no nutrition education in our schools. We are still working off that old, outdated food pyramid with white carbs on the bottom as the most we should eat, they are nutritionally empty foods. They actually take vitamins and minerals to process them. So they are anti-nutrients. We are, we still, our message since the 1970s has been low calorie, low fat. It wasn't based on any evidence in the first place, except fat is the common word. Eat fat, be fat. Well, it doesn't work like that. But we are not getting a new message. Nobody's looking at this properly. And so, there is that. And also, a doctor learns a lot in 7 years, but they only have about 7 hours of nutrition.
And they only have about 7 minutes to spend with you as a patient, which, it's...
I have an hour and a half in my first appointment, and then 40 minutes in my follow-up. And that means that actually, I'm able to get to know a person and their life. Not just they've got pain. And everything in your life adds up to where you are with your health. So it's really important that we look at all of those aspects.
Yeah, definitely. And I love the fact that you said as well about helping people switch off, like the stress response, switching off the kind of the systems within their body that are causing that high stress. Because beginning of this year, started teaching restorative yoga. Okay. And obviously that's the point of that, is very much along the lines of, okay, we're working to switch off the sympathetic nervous system and move more into the parasympathetic, so we can kind of have that reduction in stress in the body. We can start to zone out, tune in to zone out, which obviously helps massively with stress reduction. But also, again, with a lot of my clients over the years, they haven't been able to lose weight because they're so stressed. Their bodies haven't allowed, the hormone levels within their body haven't allowed them to achieve that kind of healthy lifestyle. Or they've achieved the healthy lifestyle, they just haven't achieved the healthy body because it's inside that's not working as well as it should.
It is. So I do a lot of work in weight loss. I've been running a weight loss group for the last 4 years, and really, stress and cortisol is the worst one. So stress does 3 things that are relevant to weight gain or stopping weight loss. And number 1 is it makes you hungrier. And that's because we're cave women, and if we're in acute stress, it could be a famine, so we need to survive, we need to eat as much as we can. Then number 2 is it makes you store more fat, and again, that is a cave woman survival response. And number 3 is, this is an emergency, we need more fuel, I'm going to break down your muscle to give you the extra fuel. So you then have less capacity to burn the fat. And it's one thing, so I teach blood sugar balance eating. So, and it's really a tweak on the standard Western diet. So different proportions of food and eaten in a different way, but it's all familiar foods. And it's, there's a lot of Mediterranean diet in there. It's a low carb way of eating. It's a slow carb way of eating. But it is distinct from a healthy diet. So lots of people say, but I'm eating healthily and I'm not losing weight. But actually, it's really key that you eat right to lose weight.
And for your body as well, because not everyone's body reacts to foods in the same way. So it's very much a personal journey, isn't it? And
it is. And the women who I find, so most people, when they've got their blood sugar balance, and they're eating right, they will start to lose weight. There is a small percentage of people for whom that doesn't work. So then you've got to dig around and look underneath, and very often it's stress levels that are just preventing the body letting go of the fat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've kind of found a lot of people have, because of the way we've eaten, because of the habits that we've formed over the years with the foods that we're eating, we have this imbalance in the gut, gut dysbiosis, and it's just kind of that whole, we need to, if we start eating right, we're going to balance that, and that's going to then balance that, and then it's like the chain reaction that goes through, as soon as you find that key moment, that key particular action that's happening or happened, and you can start to work with that. It's kind of like working from the bottom of the pyramid upwards, rather than just lose weight is the only goal. I don't hate people saying, I just want to lose weight. because it's like you're going to get so much more out of it than just weight loss. If you do it the right way, you're going to feel good. So many people don't know how good they could feel. It's like,
it is, and it's so interesting, isn't it? Because I always describe that as, so when people they come to my weight loss group and I say your cravings will go within 7 to 10 days, your sugar and carb cravings will go, and nobody ever believes that. And then it happens and they're like, wow, this is amazing, because now, you know, I'm left with some emotional cravings and habitual cravings, but 75% of my cravings, they're gone. And then we kind of get to the end of the first month and people go, oh, my feet don't hurt when I get out of bed in the morning, and I'm sleeping really well, and my skin's really good. And it's almost like they're looking for they're experiencing the absence of symptoms.
yeah.
And it's a very difficult thing to imagine.
Yeah, and I had this quite a few years ago now. I did a mindfulness and mindset training program, training course and program, and it was kind of, the point of it was you only really ever notice the negative. So you don't sort of wake up in the morning and go, I feel good. You wake up in the morning and go, oh, my shoulder or my knee or my foot or headache or tiredness. You very rarely wake up and go, I feel good. And that moment where you kind of wake up and there's nothing to go, oh, you kind of wake up and go, what's wrong with me? I don't know, what is this feeling? This is strange. And it is, like you say, it's noticing the absence of the negative rather than actually noticing the positive, which is, it's a lot of people don't know how to quite, deal with that and compute it and process it in their own mind. So it's really interesting when people kind of do suddenly go, I actually just feel good. It's like, hallelujah.
This is possible. This is possible.
Good. It's amazing. And I love that you say about like the cave women kind of aspect of it as well, because I people probably think I'm a bit of a broken record sometimes because I say the same thing and I just seem to keep going over and over and over the same things. But I have said to so many people at so many different times, human lifestyle has evolved, but the human body hasn't. And the human body is still fundamentally the same as when we bashed things with rocks and hunted with sticks. We haven't become any more advanced in our anatomy, in our physiology, in how our biochemicals reactions. That's why we struggle with the lifestyle that we now lead, because we are essentially cave women and cavemen, and we just don't know how to deal with all of this input and experience that's happening around us. It's such a refreshing change to hear someone kind of say the same thing. It's like, oh.
Well, so I think that people hear me say that a lot, and they hear me talk about cave women a lot, and because of that, exactly that, our physiology, it hasn't changed. But one of the books I read in my teenage years was a series called Clan of the Cave Bear, and it was about this woman, a Homo sapiens woman, and she was the medicine woman. So that was where I kind of started to hear for the first time about herbal medicine.
Yep.
And using food and herbs in a kind of a nourishing way and that kind of thing. And it's and then that kind of evolution. So emotionally, psychologically, we are moving on, most of us, but physiologically, no. And that's why, I always say our stress response, if we're cave women, it's brilliant. It's so well designed. Yeah. But when we're living in the 21st century, it's rubbish.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, our stress response doesn't know the difference between a lion hunting us and the printer cartridge running out and the printer not working. But the lion hunting us is quite clearly a stressful situation. We need to run or hide or do whatever we need to do, fight. So that fight-flight reaction that we have to that is, that's necessary. But the same reaction occurs when we have those minor stresses, like the printer cartridge has run out and the printer's not working. But obviously we don't need that full-on hormonal raging, like fight-flight moment for that, for that experience. We need to become more responsive rather than reactive, and actually kind of like step away from situations and be a bit more like, is this a stressful moment in my life? Do I really need to be stressed out by that?
Yeah, you're right. We do need to be able to rationalising and stepping back our good coping strategies. But what we really need to be able to do is to switch off
Yeah.
that stress response.
Yeah.
And your nervous system, you can either be in fight or flight, or you're in rest and digest. There are two sides of the same coin, and it's knowing how to switch off the stress response, which you do by switching on your relaxation response. And that is enormously powerful, to be able to do that at will. And then the trick is in repeating that. So it's like, I always say, it's like training a dog. You've got to do it again and again and again, and your body will get it. It will be easier, more comfortable in relaxation response, because most of us operate in stress mode all day.
Yes. Yeah. It's fine. I think with a lot of people, it's actually allowing yourself the time to do that as well, though, isn't it? People don't allow themselves the time. They think that if I sit and watch the telly for an hour, that's relaxation. Like, yeah, your body might be physically relaxed, you might be slumped on the sofa, but are you relaxed? Like, your brain is still whirring and you're still thinking. And I don't think people, not all people, but certainly some people I've come across, they don't allow themselves that time to do that.
Well, I would argue that watching TV, yes, it's downtime, no question about that, but it is distraction. It's not relaxation.
Yeah.
So, there is a difference. I'm watching TV and zoning out, watching Netflix totally has a place.
Absolutely.
But also, learning quick fixes to reduce your stress level, and also learning how to look at your life and think, okay, I need to learn how to say no now. For instance, that is also really pertinent to managing stress levels in a constructive and long-term way.
Yeah, totally. So in terms of obviously like the being a naturopath, if someone was to come to you with, say, like you mentioned a few sort of problems that people have come to you before, like endometriosis, menopause, stress, what's the process of like trying to sort of go through and work with that person? How can these things kind of help with those symptoms?
Well, so as I've kind of said, as a naturopath, I've got a broad toolbox. One of the tools is kinesiology, and it's my way of asking the person's body what it is that's going on. So there are many reasons why people's menstrual cycle might be out of balance, but there'll be different reasons for different people. So it's finding out what is the root cause, and that is a key principle of what I do, and then nudging the body, so addressing the root cause and nudging the body back into health. And that doesn't happen overnight, because what we're looking for is permanent change. We're looking for a permanent fix, not a temporary suppression. So your doctor might give you the pill for period pain. Well, it doesn't fix the problem, it just masks it. So I'm looking at finding out what is the root cause, adjusting the diet, and rebalancing hormones. And a lot of the time, when we're thinking about the female reproductive system, is a system that is naturally by design fluctuates throughout the month. Apologies. But one of the very first things that, so say somebody comes to me with endometriosis, I want to know what they eat, how they sleep, what happens with their bowels, do they like their job, how is their relationship, everything, because it all adds up. And then there's lots that we can do. So for instance, if you have pain, then your body is tense. And the more tense you are, the more pain you experience. So there are herbs which are relaxants for smooth muscle. And it's smooth muscle that lines your reproductive tract and your digestive tract. We have herbs which are antispasmodic, so they stop that pain. We have uterine antispasmodics, so herbs can be very specific in their action. Uterine hemostatics, so to stop heavy bleeding. So one of my very first patients was a lady who rang me up, so back in 2003 when I was newly qualified, and she said, I'm going to need some help after my hysterectomy with hormone balance. Can you do that? And I said, yeah, no problem. come on in. And I took her case and I spent 90 minutes talking to her and working out what was wrong. And I said, well, look, how about, because the reason she'd been recommended a hysterectomy was for extreme heavy bleeding, and she'd tried everything and nothing was working, and it was really, she couldn't leave the house. It was quite extreme heavy bleeding. And I said, well, look, why don't we give it 3 months and let's see if we can deal with the heavy bleeding.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have a hysterectomy, because I'm a great advocate of, I say, let's not crack a walnut with a hammer. So, and there are cases where people do need and benefit from hysterectomies, yes, but equally on the other side of the coin, there are things that we can do so we don't have to do that. So it's about finding out where you're at and working with it. So this particular lady, she didn't need a hysterectomy because we sorted out her bleeding using uterine hemostatics, antispasmodics, stress relaxation techniques.
That's amazing, because it's one of the things that is quite scary about when you look at statistics. The amount of women that have a hysterectomy, I think it's at the moment it's just over 60,000 in the UK each year have a hysterectomy. In America it's 600,000. It's crazy how many people have hysterectomies, but only 10% of them are medically justifiable. And it's so scary when you think of that. And I know, like, obviously, when I had my hysterectomy, it wasn't just the endometriosis. There was other underlying issues that were sort of occurring because of the amount of time it had kind of gone on for, and it had been undiagnosed, and it had caused all of these other like traumatic scar tissue and wounds to the reproductive system. And because I was given the option that you can either have HRT now, it won't be a good pregnancy, it won't be easy, we'll have to monitor you non-stop. But if you don't want to have children, if you're not going to take that risk with your own body, then your quality of life will be improved from this, because at the end of the day, your scar tissue is so dramatic that it's going to start trying to attack your bowel. It's already trying to get up onto your liver. And you need to kind of get that away from the other organs before it affects everything else. So I was kind of like, well, look, do you know what? I'm not going to put my body through that. I'm not going to try and put my body through pregnancy knowing it's going to be difficult and it's going to be even more traumatic. There's not a good percentage chance of it even working in the first place. I don't want to go through that IVF rigmarole. So I went for it, and I went for it knowing that statistic that I probably could do it another way. But after so many years of living with the pain and the disruption and the just general effect it had on my life overall, I was just like done with it. I was like, just do it, get on with it.
Well, I come back to what I said in the beginning about integrated medicine. We are very lucky that we are able to do hysterectomies.
Absolutely.
But we need to be careful to not crack a walnut with a hammer.
It's knowledge as well, though. I think having that knowledge of knowing that there are other ways of doing things, there are other ways of approaching conditions and situations. I wasn't even aware until after I'd had my surgery that there was such a thing as a pelvic floor specialist physiotherapist. I was like, nobody told me that. Nobody even told me that after my surgery. It was something I found out through my own sort of investigating and digging. I was like, oh, well, if I'd have known that, because my pelvic floor was probably hypertonic because of the pain, I could have probably gone to see a physiotherapist, and that would have actually helped to release the tension held in my pelvic floor, which would probably released a lot of pain and tension. You kind of go down this rabbit hole and go, well, if actually someone had just told me that early on, then I could have gone down that rabbit hole rather than that one.
But when people come and see me, they just say, they don't even know what I do. They've been recommended by someone who said, Sara, help me, go and see Sara. But they still don't know what herbal medicine really is, or that it even works. We just are lacking the knowledge.
I love herbal medicine.
And it is a big hole. Back in, when I would have been burnt at the stake as a witch, as a herbalist, we had the knowledge. We had the knowledge. Now we don't have the knowledge.
Yeah, we've kind of forgotten all of those traditional ways of doing things though, haven't we? Because even like with the Chinese medicine, for example. So I was in Chinatown in London a couple of months ago in summer when we were allowed to do things like that. And you know, there's all these traditional Chinese medicine shops, and I love going in them. I love going in there, and I love sort of talking to the people behind the counter and what's this, you know, what can I use for that, and what can I do for this, and the amount of different types of teas that I've got that they've made me and things like that, and these little potions. And I think it's brilliant because it does help. It really does help in so many ways. And again, it's we've kind of forgotten those age-old ancient methods and treatments that worked back then. So why would they not work now?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the traditional Chinese medicine view of the female reproductive system, I mean, they say that there is a direct energetic channel between the heart and the uterus. And you know, that explains very clearly why people's emotions affect their menstrual cycle, and also why having a hysterectomy is such a big deal, not just in terms of the physiological recovery, but actually the emotional impact of it. Yeah. And that's something I think that isn't talked about, and it's somewhere people really need support.
And it's like what I was saying to you just before we started. You know, I taught an energetic yoga class which was based on that principle. It wasn't so much the physical asana of getting into a warrior or any kind of pose. It was the letting go or finding that energetic pathway and trying to heal what was going on there, rather than, like you say, no one's looking at that side of it. No one's looking at the energies that go on inside. It's always about the physical. The scar is not healed yet, or the scar is now healed, you can do this. What about what's going on like in your heart? What about what's going on mentally?
Yeah,
and those kind of sides of the trauma that occurs from not just hysterectomy, but lots of different sort of treatments that you might get, you know, surgeries or you know, accidents or events. And it's that, obviously being a yoga teacher, you kind of work a lot with the chakra systems and that they touch on, in certain ways, meridians, but in Sanskrit they term them slightly differently. But it's that same kind of energy pathway that works through the traditional Chinese medicine as well, which again, it's so fascinating when
it is, and it's a part that's of the puzzle that's missing from our orthodox Western medical model. And because we can't see it and touch it, it's dismissed as not being there. But they're missing such an important part. You know, people's emotions do affect their health.
But this is my argument with that is, you can't see it, like you say, you're absolutely right. You can't see it, you can't touch it. So it's kind of forgotten about, but you can't touch people's emotions. Yeah. You know, that's part of that same energetic pathway and system. But we believe in the emotions and we believe that they're real. Yeah. So why do we not believe in the pathways of the energies that actually are so heavily linked to it? And it does, I kind of sit there and I understand that not everyone is on that journey. Not everyone wants to go to that kind of energetic level. But when you really look at things, you work with the energies, and I'm a Reiki healer as well, which I think you are as well, aren't you? Yeah. I mean, you actually do a Reiki healing for someone or sort of channel that energy for someone, and they come back and go, do you know what? I didn't really feel that. That was really powerful. And you're like, how would you argue that? How do you argue with that? If someone can feel it and they believe in that, that's there. That's what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, it just comes back to that model, doesn't it? If we can't see it and we can't measure it, then it must be hocus pocus.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like sound healing, crystal healing, all of these things. Sometimes my boyfriend looks at me, he's like, you're nuts. You're absolutely off the spectrum. You are. You've got crystals, you've got incense, you've got this, you've got that. And I'm like, because that's what works for me. That's what feels good for me. If I want to sit in meditation and hold like a huge chunk of amethyst or quartz or burn incense and it works for me to relax me, that's what I'm going to do, because that's what's working. So yeah. So in terms of sort of the, say like with menopause or something like that, is that something that also can be helped with, like with the herbs, with that side of the sort of medicinal property of the herbs?
Yeah, 100%. I always say that herbal medicine, is made for the menopause. Because I mean, what happens when you go into perimenopause and menopause is your endogenous hormones, so the hormones your body produces, they gradually start to fall. And it's a process of your body readjusting to that. Each time it comes down a little bit more. So absolutely, you can use herbs, so estrogenic herbs, progesteronic herbs, that actually help to rebalance. And in the same way where you have maybe too much estrogen, so in estrogen dominant conditions like endometriosis, fibroids, you use plant estrogens to block the estrogen receptors and help the liver to excrete the excess hormones that are floating around the body, making it worse. So, there are many things that we can do, and addressing the emotional aspect, and really importantly with menopause, the adrenals. We've talked about so many people being really stressed out. Well, that is really draining for your adrenal glands. And if your endocrine system works together, so your adrenals, they're like your foundations, and if your adrenals are running on empty, then your hormones have got nothing to balance on, and they'll be all over the place. And I do find that women who've had very stressful lives have a more menopausal symptoms.
I've certainly I agree with that. The more stress, the more hot flushes, the more brain fog, the more chaos.
And when you treat the adrenals, that will calm down, that will stop.
I think it's I mean, before I started working with the menopause, I've always worked with women, and I think when I was a personal trainer, I was noticing that so many of my women who were of that age, peri to postmenopausal age, were all suffering with the same issues. They were all having issues trying to achieve weight loss or not necessarily build muscle tone, but just achieve the results that they'd kind of set themselves. 95% of the time would have been weight loss. And when I started putting the puzzle together, and I was like, well, it's obviously something to do with hormones here, because we're in that age of your life, and you're starting to talk about waking up in the middle of the night and feeling uncomfortable. You're starting to talk about forgetting what you're talking about, sort of situations. So maybe we should start looking down that possibility that you are perimenopausal. And so many women, no, not there yet. It's like that denial, isn't it? It's like, no, I'm not there yet. That means old. I'm not old yet.
But also women didn't, perimenopause, that word has only become in, common usage, i.e. not medical usage. It's only become in common usage the last few years.
Nobody knew. I've heard people say they don't even know what it is. What is perimenopause? What does that mean? What does menopause mean? And I think that's the problem. It's much like we sort of mentioned earlier. People aren't given that, like we're not given that nutritional education at school. We're not given that education on what the menopause actually is, what it's going to do to our bodies, when we might expect it to occur, when it might start from. I said to my consultant before I had my surgery, I'm pretty sure I'm perimenopausal. I'm having hot flushes, forget my brothers and sisters' names, call my dog by my cat's name, all of these sorts of things. Oh, don't be silly, you're only in your late 30s, you can't be that yet, you're too young. I'm like, I think you'll find I can be.
Yeah, that can happen.
It's totally possible. I'm a year off 40, why shouldn't it happen? So, but from the women that I've worked with, so many of them are blissfully unaware of what the menopause is. They know it means that they're not going to have periods anymore. But that bit before it, that perimenopausal bit, nobody's aware of it.
Nobody. Well, we are talking about it now, but
I think people are starting to now.
But
for a long time. It's like I was explaining to someone just a couple of weeks ago that the menopause literally means that you have not had a period consistently for a year. You've had that for 12 months, you've not had a period. On the anniversary of reaching that point where you've not had one for a year, that's your menopause. From that point on, you are post-menopause.
You can still have loads of hot flushes though.
But
it's a bit of a random. It's a bit of a random thing, isn't it? Really, a random definition of your postmenopausal 1 year after.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's our medical terms as well, isn't it? I think it is. It's very black and white. That is your perimenopause, that's your menopause, that's your postmenopause. But your symptoms of the menopause can span anything either side of that.
Yeah.
So it's very black and white in its description.
And I think that's why we need to learn to tune into ourselves, to work with our body, and to use, the things that we can use, like what we eat, like, what we drink, like the things that nature provides us, certain herbs, getting the right supplements to be in balance, and slow down. Accept actually that it comes back very often to learning to say no.
Yes.
Again,
I heard a great saying the other day, actually. It was I can't remember who it was who said it, but she basically, the crux of what she was saying is we need to embrace our dysfunctions in order to love ourselves enough to listen and slow down. And I was like, that's actually quite a good way of putting it. Like I said to you, a lot of the things that I've gone through prior to my hysterectomy, I kind of see them as a gift because they've allowed me the opportunity to slow down and listen to what my body's actually telling me, and then zone in on that. So I think it's definitely time to sit back and listen for a while and go, right, what do I need? What do I have?
Sometimes your body will force a stop. So the reason I'm a naturopath was because in my early 20s I got chronic fatigue syndrome. My body literally says stop now. And I had to listen. I was forced to listen. But equally, that's one of my biggest blessings, because I wouldn't be a naturopath, and have had such a wonderful career helping people if I hadn't had chronic fatigue syndrome.
Absolutely. It's those little signs that keep coming up, don't they? And it's, I think as well, the body's always kind of like there in the background, sort of like whispering your name quietly until it does get to a point where it has to scream. And it's do you know what? Listen to me now, because otherwise, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get back now. But definitely, I think I'm not a pill popper. I don't like sort of like the traditional synthetic medication. I prefer to go to a natural route, which is, I find it a lot more effective for me personally. So
yeah, I think it's don't crack a walnut with a hammer. I would say from the women I've seen for menopause, 95% of them respond very quickly to herbal medicine. So there is a way. For most people, there is a way to do it naturally, to work with your body.
So one thing I'd like to ask you, as a stress sort of specialist moving into the stress side of things, do you find that the current, so kind of like our tech addiction, fuels that to a degree, like with social media and everything's on our phones, it's always there, it's always buzzing? Do you find that has an impact on people's stress levels?
I would say 100%. I was watching a scientist talking, and she's into productivity, was her specialist area of research. And she basically said that our phones are designed to be as stimulating and as exciting and as addictive as possible. So in the same way that Facebook and Instagram are specifically designed to hook us and keep us in there. So yes, because it's like adrenal draining stuff being on there. And it is addictive. So we see it. I see it in people's sleep, we see it in people's moods. But most people, if you say to them, your phone is designed to make you addicted to it, they say, oh, that's rubbish. What are you talking about? But actually it is. So, you know, I'm a big one for saying, don't put your phone in your bedroom, buy an alarm clock. Because, you know, for me, my phone is right here. This is my work phone. Without it, I feel naked.
Yeah.
You do, don't you?
Yeah.
So every time I look at this, I lay eyes on it and I think of work. I don't want that in my bedroom.
No.
And it also can't be the first thing I see in the morning, because if I get into my phone, I don't meditate. I don't, you know, do my exercise, don't do my yoga. So it gets in the way, most definitely. And it does make us more stressed, and it makes us more insecure. It makes us stressed about the way that we look. You know, my granny in her entire adolescence would have seen as many images of physical perfection as we see in one afternoon. You know, it's quite disconcerting, isn't it, really? I mean, I recently did another yoga teacher training actually during the lockdown, and I studied with a traditional yogi who's in the Himalayas, he's in Rishikesh. And obviously being online, we can do all these things now without having to travel, which is a fantastic gift, you know, in a way. But one of the teachers who's a traditional Ashtanga teacher, and he said, you know, people learn yoga for two reasons. One, to better their health. One, to be on Instagram. He said, ones that are on Instagram doing the perfect postures and sharing the photographs of this beautiful, beautifully aligned posture. They're not yogis, they're not yoga people. They love the idea of being on Instagram and getting likes and you know, all of this sort of attention on social media. The people that genuinely want to get up in the morning and to practice yoga, you know, before they look at their phone, you know, they haven't even thought about their phone. They're the yogis. They're the ones that are actually doing probably the best style of yoga, because they're doing what works for them, not what looks good on a camera. And it was quite interesting when he was saying it. It was like, actually, you're probably right, because if I go onto Instagram and I follow a few people who do yoga, you always kind of see their picture and go, oh, when I do Warrior 2, it doesn't look like that. You know, it's sort of slightly crooked arm or something like that. Yeah. But it does make you feel like, if I was to put a picture on there, it would be, oh, it's not as pretty as that picture, or it's not as good as that picture. So it does give you that insecurity, which obviously then makes you feel a little bit stressed or low, or whatever it's going to do to you mentally. So it is, I try not to look at social media. Obviously I work on Facebook quite a lot, but I try not to look at it too much on a personal thing, because you end up you can lose hours to just scrolling, but nothing else is coming up. So it's what a waste of a day. Yeah, it is, and you lose contact with real people as well.
Yeah, I've noticed that in like my sort of nieces and nephews and friends' children, and stuff. The lack of conversational flow. You know, they really struggle to start a conversation in the first place, let alone let it flow and continue. It's a very abrupt conversation. And I've seen it in myself sometimes, certainly over the last few months with being sort of isolated and having all these restrictions. It's like your only contact is via online, and it's like, I've actually got to try and converse with people now, because it's just me and them on the screen and no one's interacting. You know, if one person doesn't speak, the other person just kind of sits there and goes, what's going on? So I have seen that you know, that loss of communicational flow with certain members of my family and friends and things like that. And it's difficult. It is difficult, because people are so used to that just double tap or swipe left or whatever it is you do. They've lost that ability or lost that connection to do that, which again, it's not going to make life easier as we get older and move forward into other situations. So so is there anything that we've not talked about, anything that you think we should share?
Well, I mean the main thing that I'd really on a mission to educate people about is how much their nutrition can affect their health and how much they can do for themselves. You know, so know that there is something else out there that is not in your GP surgery, that actually works with your body. It is gentler and it empowers you to take control. You know, I really believe that your health is in your hands.
Yeah.
Now we all get, so it's like a hand of cards. You get dealt your hand, but how you play it is up to you.
Yeah.
So, you know, we get a genetic inheritance, but how we live, how we eat, how we think, how we look after ourselves, that really is within our gift. And making sure that women know that is really, really important. There's so much that we can utilize to help ourselves. Yeah, that's my message, is that, you know, herbal medicine and nutritional medicine, naturopathic medicine, it's not some thing that, you know, it's just all about chamomile tea. It's real, and it can have profound impact on your body and the way that you feel.
Amazing. Great. I love that. That's a good message. That's a good message. Definitely for the hormonal balance side of things, as well as everything else.
Absolutely.
So important to have that knowledge. And even if you do still go to the GP, and I think I've said this to quite a few people recently, going to the GP with knowledge is so powerful, because you've got that argument as such, in a way that you can kind of say, well, I think it's this and this, or I understand this. It gives you that power to ask questions and demand the right healthcare, which is so important for all of us.
But also, I say to people, go to your doctor, have a relationship with your doctor, which I know you have to fight to see the same one these days, but make it clear that you are not there for a prescription necessarily.
No.
You don't have to come out with a prescription, which often is given because they think you're expecting one. And actually, what you want is a dialogue and, you know, the first steps to improving your health, you know, is knowledge. You go to your GP for knowledge and understanding and care and support. You know, it doesn't always have to end with, and here's your prescription.
Yeah. I've had that a few times where I've gone in and I have a lot of sinus trouble. So I get, it's been diagnosed as sinusitis, it's been diagnosed as rhinitis, I've been told it's nothing at all. Some people have said it might be polyps. But every time I go in, it's a different GP, it's a different conversation, and it ends in more or less the same result. You know, either here's some antibiotics, take them for a week, see if it gets better, or there's nothing wrong. And it's like, I know there's something wrong, because every morning I wake up and my nose is completely blocked.
Yeah.
So I just want that diagnosis so I can kind of like move forward and actually do the things that need to be done to try and remedy it.
So, but what you've got there is a diagnosis of sinusitis, which, so anything itis means inflammation. It doesn't give you, so sometimes diagnoses are really helpful, sometimes they're not. So IBS is meaningless because it means your bowel doesn't work, but we don't know how or why. So then you need to go and find someone who's going to find out what is your root cause. So I can tell you sinusitis is often linked to food intolerance. You know, there's nutrients that you can take to calm down the inflammation in your mucous membrane, to thin mucus, to you know, to clear your sinuses. So fresh horseradish, you get fresh horseradish. You need to find someone who's got an allotment. They will have fresh horseradish, but you can feel it clear through your head. So there's, you know, naturopathically, there's heaps that you can do. You don't have to live with that.
No, and that's something that I've been sort of scratching away at now for a while, and looking at different ways that I can work with more natural remedies to try and relieve this, rather than here's some more pills, take these pills.
Yeah, see, antibiotics can save your life. But overused antibiotics will damage your health.
Absolutely.
So it's knowing that, and that's part of the, actually, I don't need a prescription for this. I don't want to come out with antibiotics. Yes, there is a place for them, 100%, but actually there's many ways to deal with sinusitis, and like you said, antibiotics often they don't do it. You could have a fungal infection up there. You know, there's lots of things that, you know, your digestion is linked. There's loads of things that you would need to look at, but it's completely resolvable.
Yeah, absolutely, totally know that it's not something that I have to constantly deal with.
No.
It is just, like you say, it's finding that route.
Yeah.
Once I've found that route, I know that path will change and that the outcome will be different. Yeah. It's been a lot. Well, I would say this, it's not been too bad the last couple of years, but this year it's been particularly bad. And I actually think it's more to do with not being outdoors, not going out as much, not actually having as much fresh air as I normally would, and things like that.
Yeah, we do see that. We do see that with that kind of perennial rhinitis, sinusitis type thing. And also your indoors is more polluted than your outdoors. Yeah. So, you know, we are at home more.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Okay.
So how do people find you? If they want to come and have a chat with you about what you can do to help them, how do they get in touch?
I'm on Facebook, Sara Southgate, the Health SAS. Stress anxiety specialist, but I always like to say I parachute in and make people's lives healthier.
I love
it. So yeah, that makes me happy. So it's Facebook, Instagram, and my website, sarasouthgate.com. And Sara is SARA, sarasouthgate.com, but find me. And I'm always happy to have a chat and see how I can help, how we can work together.
That's fantastic. We'll put all the links in the comments and description of the podcast anyway. So if people want to just go and click, they can. Just makes it a bit easier. But thank you so much for joining me today. This has been absolutely fantastic, really, really interesting. There's more questions I want to ask, but they're probably more personal, so let's just leave them until we're done that recording. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. It's been really, really interesting, and I hope that everyone else has found it interesting as well.
Yeah, hopefully it will help some people.
Hopefully. Thank you so much, Sara.
You're welcome, Leslie.
Take care.